Jeff, welcome to the show. Hello.
Great to see you, Arne. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Awesome, awesome. Thanks for making the time. Give us a little introduction. Who are you? What do you do? What does your life look like?
Sure. My name is Jeff. I'm a finance and M&A professional, married with two kids, early 40s, 44 years old, born and raised in Vancouver, and that's where home is for me today.
Nice one. Nice one. Fantastic. So you've been a client for how long now? Like it's been a while, right? We've had some moments together.
Yeah,
Walk us through what did your
sure.
situation look like before we get started?
Sure. Yeah. Our journey together, Arnie, started in July of last year of 2025.
Exactly. It's been a year now.
That's right, just over. And it's funny, I remember it because I started just after I attended the Calgary Stampede for work.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I remember from that Stampede event is just feeling heavy, feeling not vital, not energized, not pumped up about how I was looking and how I was feeling. And I'll set the stage, some of how I was, like the metrics, like how much I weighed and
Yeah.
what my life was like. I think that's
Sure.
important context. I was a guy who'd probably been more than social drinking for a long time, even though I was a gym guy. Like I've been working out since I was 16. It felt every year I was putting on a little bit more weight, so
Mhm.
that at this event in the Stampede in 2025, I was about 215, 217, which for a guy my height, just over 6 foot, that's a pretty heavy mass. I probably, as a finance guy, spent lots of evenings and weekends with clients and contacts and drinking too much and pizza and late night food and bars and all those things. And I think it just finally caught up to me. And I felt like I was ready for a change. I needed a change. I felt like I'd reached the end of what I could accomplish on my own. I felt like I was doing what I thought were the right things, which was I wasn't working out every day, but I was working out probably twice a week back then. And I was still living a pretty active lifestyle, hockey, skiing. I love hiking, walking everywhere to and from the office. And yet it still felt every year I was putting a little bit more weight on and it was looking less and less like the physical person that I wanted to be. And so yeah, so that was the segue into connecting with you and to trialing what I think has turned out to be a pretty successful process.
I definitely agree with that. But what challenges were you were dealing with? So mainly the entertaining of the clients, right?
Yeah,
Young kids, and you were already leading an active lifestyle, but
yeah,
it didn't work basically.
sure.
Didn't
Yeah,
work to the degree that you were hoping it would.
I think that's a great question, and I would go back to the view, to some of the things I was doing back then. So being physical and having a physical lifestyle was a feature, but
Mm,
as I
mm,
look back on it, the other things I was doing were sabotaging those
mm,
features, those
mm,
attributes. That included lots of beer and lots of wine with in social situations, work situations. That included not being focused on the food I needed to eat, the
mm,
types of foods, the quality
mm,
of
mm,
foods, the macros of carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. I think the stuff I was eating was off kilter, and I didn't know that at the time. I think
mm,
my sleep was a disaster. It was not uncommon to have 4 or 5 hours of sleep
mm,
consistently during the week. And we can talk about solutions in a second, but one of the first things you and I fixed with your guidance was the sleep. And now I sleep better, deeper, longer, and feel so much more refreshed as a result. And there's
mm,
a bunch of
mm.
different features behind that. But so that was the kind of the starting point. I think we took a lot of action, which I'm happy to share if you'd like at this stage. But
Mm.
I think that was where we started from a year ago.
But the thing that stands out to me is
Yeah,
that you were thinking you were doing everything right. You
totally.
were living an active lifestyle. You were playing
Yes,
hockey. You were going to the gym. You were
yes.
like you knew that yes, alcohol and stuff like that. But overall, you thought you were living a
Totally.
healthy lifestyle, right?
If you'd asked me in July of last year, was
Yeah,
I athletic? I would have
yeah,
said absolutely.
yeah.
And that comes from a long time playing these sports and these activities in high school
Mm,
and whatnot.
mm,
But I think where it was divorced from reality was even though I was doing some of these things, the body,
mm,
the rest of the package was missing.
mm,
The rest of
mm,
the package was again being overwhelmed by some other decisions that I didn't even know necessarily were poor. I think we all know that social drinking is less optimal than not drinking, but I felt like I was doing enough things to overcome that. And really, in this process, we uncovered that wasn't the case.
Yeah. Yeah. But you must have been skeptical, is what I'm trying to say
Oh,
here. You were like,
yeah,
what can these guys show me, really? Like,
totally.
what's going to? Yeah, walk us through the thought process there.
Yeah, I feel like as someone who's been in the gym, you think you know what you need to do in the gym. I had a certain set of routines. I had 3 workouts that I would cycle in and out of. I was always making time to do physical activity. And so the results obviously had diverged from what I expected. And my natural skepticism was around, can Arne and team actually do the things that they are suggesting to me? It's pretty easy. I'm sure everyone can agree. It's pretty easy to post pre and post pictures of someone, whether you worked with them or not. That I was naturally skeptical of that. Another major skepticism that I had was like, this seemed like a big investment for me, given that I didn't know anyone. I didn't know anyone who had gone through this with you, Arne. I didn't know people in my social scene or network that would be like, oh yeah, Arne was great, and here's what my results were. So it was a little bit of a leap of faith.
Yeah, you
But
met a guy online, right?
I know, truly,
Yeah.
truly. Yeah. I think back to the first conversation we had. I had to step out of the office and I was walking around in the parking lot when we were chatting.
I know.
There's a connection. And so,
Yeah.
that was the natural skepticism I have friends I have a friend who's an Ironman. I have other friends who've been working out since they're 16 like me. And between these folks, I would have assumed I did assume that I had the knowledge or resources to be able to make those decisions and have that informed decision about what would make my health better. And clearly I did. Clearly I missed a big part of the discussion, and I'm glad we were able to fix that.
Yeah. So you mentioned the Calgary Stampede, coming home from that and
Yeah.
feeling like heavy, right? But
Yes.
in what other day-to-day scenarios did you notice this, where you
Sure.
were like, I don't want to live like this any longer?
Totally. Yeah. We had just had our second second son last summer. So I have 2 young boys under the age of 5. And when you reach this stage or your early 40s, mid 40s, you start thinking about what the long term looks like, Arne. At least I did. I don't want to speak for others, but
Same here,
right.
same here. I'm also in my 40s, right? And I
Yeah.
have kids,
Totally.
right? It's like, who do I want to be when I'm 60? Who do I want to be when I'm 80, right?
Totally.
So these are the questions that I ask myself. What
Yeah.
activities do I want to be doing later on in life?
Yeah, and you and I have spoken about this. There's a lot of good content, in the market, various books and whatnot that help you make decisions about what you want to do. I found for me, the deepest question is like, how good of a quality of life do you want to have at 60 or 70 or 80? Do you want to be on the outs or be unable to do things
Yeah.
at the age of 60 that you can do today? Or do you want to figure out a way to be able to play with your grandkids fully?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
70 or 80?
Yeah. Do you want to? I had a call with a guy. He said to me, he's diabetic, and we fixed some diabetics before, but he said, I don't want to be pushed around by my wife in a wheelchair and become a burden, a liability to my loved ones. I don't think this was necessarily on your mind back then, but it's thing that we want to ask ourselves, like, what's the upside when we do this, and what's the downside? Because there's a cost to everything, right? There's a cost of doing this, obviously, right? It does involve some maybe sacrifices, but I think in a good way. But with a strong enough why and becoming aware of the why, those things become easy, right? I don't have to force myself to the gym because I consider it a privilege that I can do these things now and I am able to, right? So, but yeah, sorry, I interrupted you. Keep going.
No, these are all similar themes. I appreciate your feedback and your thoughts. I keep coming back to the basics. I always liked going to the gym. So for me, that's never been a challenge. And I've always, almost without exception, I've always been enjoys doing physical activity. Again, those activities we talked about earlier. But there was a big piece missing because I didn't look like a guy going to the gym and playing hockey and skiing all the time. I looked like a guy 215 on someone who's slightly over 6 foot. That's a big frame. That's a lot of weight. And so it was a time for a refresher. My natural skepticism said, I don't even know if we could lose 10 pounds. I'm sure we'll talk about results in a moment. I was naturally skeptical. I said, if I invest these dollars and lose 10 pounds, this will have been mission accomplished. Obviously, we'll talk about results, but been wildly successful on that metric. And I feel better now than I did before. I feel stronger now. And that's part of this process is even though that I would have been going to the gym, and even though I knew, as a guy who'd been going to the gym for 30 years, I knew many of the things I needed to be doing. I didn't know all of them. I didn't know the concept of perhaps a full body exercise. I was rotating things like all upper body. I had a back and bi day, a chest and tri day, and a shoulder delt / day. And part of the learning for me when I joined your program was like, okay, what about deadlifts? What about squats? What about other kind of compound exercises? And again, they've just been out of my realm of view. I never did those exercises.
Yeah, interesting. You mentioned results. Let's talk about results.
Sure.
What changed here? What's the Jeff 2.0 look like here today?
Sure. Yeah. Fast forward to 12 months, just over 12 months that we've been working together. I'm super proud. I've lost about 30 pounds, which is remarkable. So wildly successful versus
30 pounds of butter. Why getting stronger?
Yes,
why putting on some filet, some nice lean muscle mass onto your frame as well in the meantime. Okay.
For sure.
30 pounds on the scale.
Yeah.
Okay. What else?
Yeah, it's an important clarification. So I've never been stronger. I've never felt more physically strong in everything that I do. And so clearly, to your point, not only did I lose 30 pounds, but I replaced some sort of additional weight that was fat with more muscle.
Yeah.
And so it's remarkable. I don't quite have a ripped 8-pack, but it's also not too far away. I think that's one of our next objectives on one of our cycles here. And my waist is down dramatically. Couple things that I would observe. I went from size 35, 36 pants to sometimes size 32 is loose. Depending on the fit. It's just feeling stronger, more confident, more energized. I feel I have way more energy to play with my kids. My wife has noticed, which is wonderful. It just feels like it's been a powerful step change. And I've had friends notice. I have friends say things like, Jeff, I'm amazed and proud as your friend of what you've accomplished, which is, it's a great feeling. And we talk about what we want to be doing at 70 or 80. I think it's also important to note, I think we want to be role models for our kids, right? Absolutely. Do you want to be walking around at 217 like I was and a big person or someone who's 185 to 195 pounds, much leaner, right? And I think to me, that's an easy decision. So I think there's a couple other pieces I'd point out. The sleep is so much deeper and stronger. Simple things like, I think it's the blue light goggles that we got right off the first month. Other things that I notice today, magnesium, like supplements, we're talking about magnesium pills right before bedtime. I notice when I don't have it versus when I have it, and I sleep so much deeper and stronger and longer when I take magnesium. We talk about blood work that we started and the reduction in the cholesterol levels that were concerning for someone like me at early 40s to have elevated cholesterol. I think we've seen the impact there. I've probably never been a stronger skater on the ice for my hockey than since maybe when I was 18 or 20, I was stronger, but it's remarkable to be in my 40s and very strong versus where I was before. And so, a couple things I'm personally proud of, man. I'm deadlifting over 400 pounds and squatting over 300, which is something I never would have done before, which is awesome. So you can tell.
I want to add to this because people are skeptic when they hear these numbers. What about the form? Is he cheating? We make sure that we are form fanatics over here. So I can attest that Jeff's form on the deadlifts and on the squats is meticulous. So because some guys say, I can bench 200 to 50 pounds. And no, man, this is like you're only doing half reps. So or people are bouncing with the deadlifts and stuff like that. No, this is not the case. Like, this is legit here. Legit 400 plus pounds. Awesome.
Totally. Yeah, it's great. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just very curious. Since you're a finance guy, I'm assuming that the data-driven approach that we follow would resonate with you, like looking at numbers, making database decisions. But what else would you say was the most, or were the most helpful things that we did
Sure.
together, or what was the most helpful thing in terms of the accountability and the structure of the program?
Yeah, let's start with the basics the gaps that I had when we started. Like the simplicity of understanding how your body processes carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. I would have assumed I knew enough on those pieces, but I clearly did not. I think
Mhm.
we changed our diet, right? We went from maybe carbohydrate and fat intensive diets to some extent to much more protein in our diet than ever
Mhm.
before.
Mhm.
I learned about the fact that protein, your body digests it at a different capacity than other macros, and therefore when you're consuming a calorie of
Mhm.
protein, you're actually burning a piece of it when your
Yeah,
body digests it,
about,
right?
about a third. Yeah.
That's right. So that's a
Yeah.
feature. So things like that. I found the calorie restrictions both insightful and helpful to some extent. It can be I found it a little monotonous to have to track, 7 ounces of X and 3 ounces of
Mhm.
Y. But at the end of the day, if that's what it takes to stay focused and stay disciplined, then it's absolutely been worthwhile. I do want to put a side note here. I found our results really accelerated when we started doing a 36-hour fast. We would do that once a
Okay.
week.
Okay.
Wildly productive, it felt for me. We were making progress before,
Mhm.
and then we added this sort of fast. I found it was a great use of our time and
Mhm.
very successful. I think
Mhm.
people always ask me today, how do you feel about fasting? And I explained to them, for me, it feels like that first 4 hours of a morning where you're used to having breakfast. If you can make it till noon, your
Mhm.
body starts, or my body starts going to fat burn mode, and it's a very stable Zen-like experience.
I know. I know.
Yeah, it's just calming. It's weird. It's weirdly calming because you would assume you're going to have hunger pains. Oh my God, I'm so
No,
hungry. But
no.
no. Yeah,
See,
go ahead.
one thing on this,
Yeah,
number one, or
yeah.
two things on this. Number one is we're not fasting fanatics. Not every client
No,
of ours
for
has
sure.
to fast, right? We're
Yeah.
not dogmatic about anything. It all gets customized to what is going to be the most helpful for this particular client. On the other hand, what happens on a biochemistry basis here is that the body, once it notices that there's no food coming in, it shifts into this kind of, it's a part of the survival mechanism that kicks in because your body produces adrenaline. This adrenaline kind of makes you very focused. This is a Zen-like state that you were describing. And it also suppresses the appetite. So this is one of the mechanisms that people like you are experiencing there, because all of these mechanisms were developed during the Stone Age, right? The caveman who was fully fat and just had a juicy piece of, I don't know, like mammoth. They were like chilling in the corner
Yeah.
of the cave, and the hungry guys, they were like, no, let's get to a hunt, let's get to work. I'm productive. I want to get things done. You're still
I
a
do.
caveman in a suit. That's you, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think you highlighted what is another feature of the program, Arnie. I think both you and my trainer John have been flexible and worked
Uh,
with me to
uh,
find what worked for me, right? With kids and a wife and a demanding career, not all of the things that you guys could ask me to do were things I could do easily or comfortably.
mhm.
And so you guys have been great about, okay, maybe we can't do this, but let's try this other idea, or substitute A for B. And I think that was one of the benefits of the program. It wasn't rigid that you have to do 6 things in a day. It was more flexible, and that was
Mm.
helpful to me in managing my life.
Yeah, yeah. Otherwise, you end up with a million different rules, and you have to. It
Totally.
gets complicated, right? It has to be simple. Simple scales, complex fails, and complexity is the enemy of execution. There are some things that
Totally.
we base pillars of our core philosophy here.
Yeah.
So yeah, awesome. People are oftentimes afraid that they have to sacrifice a lot. So, are you still drinking alcohol? Are you still entertaining clients? Are you still traveling? Are you still enjoying family meals? Walk us through this.
Sure. I think there's two answers. I'd answer that way, that a little differently. The first way I would answer that is obviously there are lifestyle changes that I had to make in order to get my results. Like
Yeah.
going out with a client on a Monday night is an example. For maybe sometimes that means drinking soda water instead of drinking red wine. That's, to me, was an example of something I had to choose to do.
Mhm.
Or separating yourself from situations where there's ice cream on your house. My kids, or like most kids, they like ice cream and sugar, and my wife enjoys that too. So having to figure out a way where I can handle those temptations. That was some of the lifestyle changes. But to your
Mm-hmm.
point, no, I'm still a social drinker. I still enjoy a cold beer after a hockey game. I still enjoy a glass of wine with my wife.
I remember that you mentioned that on our first call. I still want to be able to enjoy a cold beer
Yeah,
after a hockey game, and I'm glad to
there you
hear
go.
that you did. So
That's right.
awesome.
That's right. Yeah, it's just about picking your spots. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know that my lifestyle was or is like everyone else, but all I would say is that I do have many friends who are still in the system that I was a part of, which was beer and wine 4 or 5 nights a week. Maybe it was one or two, maybe it was one, maybe it was more, depending on the situation. You had a work event, then you had a family dinner, then you had a date night with your wife, and then the other night you went out with your buddy. And those are all things you can still do. Just I think you have to pick your spots differently. You have to be more focused and selective.
Yeah.
And again, for a guy like me who's got young kids and a wife and a career, that actually helped me focus the time that I have, focus and make better decisions beyond the health impacts. And so there have been trickle down impacts from that. So I still enjoy a piece of cake from time to time. I still definitely love ice cream. I had a little bit of ice cream last night, and John's going to probably give me flack for it, but it was great. And
It was
so,
worth it.
yeah,
It was worth it.
that's
That's
right.
all that
Worth
matters.
it. Well,
By the way,
yeah.
I don't know if you know that, but we do have ice cream recipes that I've designed. My favorite ice cream recipes, like DIY high protein ice cream that takes less than a minute. And if you have a blender,
Sure.
I'm gonna point you in the right direction there.
Deal. Sounds good.
Fantastic. Now, what has
Yeah,
someone like you to say to someone who's on the fence about
sure.
joining Fit Executive?
Sure. If I were them, I would probably be feeling like I would imagine someone that was like me a year ago would feel things like, will this work? Can this work? Is this a reasonable investment of my time and energy and dollars
And money, yeah.
and money? That's right. And if I do these things, what will be the outcomes? What will be different about this process? What will be different about this situation? And again, I can only speak to my personal experience, Arne, but to a guy who'd been working out consistently since he was 16 and a fit, generally athletic guy, but who was still heavy, I found that taking this step has been life-changing, and it has exceeded my wildest expectations. Back to what I shared earlier today, my original goal is if I trimmed 10 pounds of fat, this would have been successful. And we ended up doing over 30 pounds. So to me, that is just a remarkable signal of learning things you thought you know, but you don't actually know, and then helping use that knowledge to make better decisions, to make better informed decisions about how you spend your time, what you do with it, how you eat. So that again, you and I will be both playing with our grandkids at 80 years old and probably still doing pull-ups and hopefully maybe still doing squats and deadlifts, who knows, right? And living our best life. That to me is the benefit of this whole process.
Awesome. Do you think this is going to be sustainable?
Yeah, really good question. I think it is. I don't know who said this, but I believe I've read that habits are formed when you do it a certain number of times. I think it's 25 or 30 times. And so many of the habits that we learned over the last 12 months have now become instinctual, right? It's when you go out for dinner, are you ordering A or B or C, or are you ordering the healthier alternatives that you should be sticking to? Now, don't get me wrong. Sometimes you do, as we talked about earlier, you still have the option to choose the less healthy version from time to time, but it can't be your choice every day. You can't have fettuccine Alfredo 3 meals a day, right? That's not going to be productive, right? So I feel though that's the core of this is I have learned new habits, I have learned new tricks, I have learned new things. Is it a fear of mine that I go back, that somehow I put on 30 pounds? Again, it's a terrifying thought to me. I don't know what my life would be like if I went back to that. With that in mind, the combination of fear of that situation, of excitement with the fitness I have today, and the tools you've taught me, that you and John have taught me, the tools you've given me, the habits I've built, I feel pretty good that this is endurable. Now, will it fluctuate a little bit, like 2 steps forward, 1 step backwards, perhaps? But as long as we're not blowing up the whole process, I think I'll be pretty happy.
Awesome. Awesome. Any final words before we head off? You're super
Sure.
busy.
Yeah, I'll just
Gonna
say,
be respectful.
yeah, thank you. I would say I appreciate that you've invited me onto your conversation today. For those skeptical, I understand your skepticism. I would encourage you to have a chat with Arne, to maybe have a chat with one of the trainers. And of course, you're always welcome to, I think, connect with any one of us who've gone through this program or
Absolutely.
advanced. And we're happy to give you a personal touch, if you will, to understand that the person that I'm speaking to is a real person, a real guy called Jeff, a real guy with kids, a real person who's a finance professional, lives in Vancouver. These are all real things. I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be on this with you, Arne and team, if the results didn't speak profound. If the results didn't say, we have been successful together. This has worked. And yeah, those are my last thoughts other than to say appreciate that you brought me on and that we had a chance to work together starting last summer. So thank you, Arne.
Yeah, man. Thank you. Thank you, Jeff.